want to make all our efforts go out so that the scales tip in the right direction in terms of world events, and because we are living, as we know, in a time of great crisis, and as the Chinese would say, interesting times. Mm-hmm. So please join me in welcoming Jon Rasmussen.
Welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. I think we have just enough people to tip the scales tonight. So I think I see some new faces here, and I don't know if some of you have ever experienced any shamanic work before or not. Is this kind of a new idea for you altogether? Okay. Yeah. Let me just give you a little bit of a background then, because as Emery noted, I've been trained by the Q'ero shamans from Peru primarily, and I spent the last 30 years of my life now studying many different traditions and spiritual practices and shamanic traditions from around the world. And I've been doing the practice now for going on 15 years or so, seeing mostly private clients and working with small groups. And come on in. And the reason that someone like me can be sitting here, I think, and be a trained and initiated shaman is because of my teachers, these Q'ero, who isolated themselves 500 years ago, and they left because of their prophecy that showed that the world was being turned upside down. These warrior masculine-based mythologies were being spread all over the world that were very antagonistic towards the feminine, and this would be the cause of essentially every problem we're familiar with today in the world: poverty, war, disease, these types of things. And they isolated themselves so that they could hold on to the feminine-based mythologies that were actually functional, healthy, peaceful, sustainable. And because they knew we'd need them again someday. There'd be a time when we would have sort of run the course of this approach of the warrior masculine, and someone would need to come back and reintroduce the world. And they isolated themselves so their subsequent generations wouldn't buy into these myths, because myths are extra psychic. They spread by osmosis more than having to actually read it or hear about it or study. These are things spread through our culture and our society and our families and other influential institutions. And so by going to 18,000 feet in the Andes for the last 500 years, they've managed nobody knew they existed. Not even the Peruvian natives knew about these people after a while. And then 60 years ago, they were reading their prophecy again, and it said that the world was being turned right side up. Now was the time. The feminine was coming back into its value and power, and we would have a millennium of gold as a result of making the right policy decisions and decisions about how we run the environment and everything. We would finally get there. And it would be the hard way or the easy way. The warrior masculine would go out kicking and screaming. They'd just blow everything up because they can't control it anymore. And this is the tipping of the balance we're at. Is it going to be the hard way or the easy way? And the easier way was led by the round-eyed shamans from the north, according to, they didn't know that all these European people were now living in the north of the equator relative to where they are. But they saw in this vision that if they could teach and reinitiate all of the shamans from essentially all over the world, every culture, every tradition, every country, which they have now in a big way, that the easy way would be for us to come and do their work and be a part of their lineage and help people turn that over within themselves and heal the 500 or thousands of years of wounds that these sort of mythologies have caused, so that as individuals we could come back into our power and freedom, put the feminine above the masculine, and begin to influence the rest of humanity in this way. And then those myths would spread, and we'd have everything switch around. So that's what's really happening in a very broad sense. And when we talk tonight about the concept of peace and kindness, from the shaman's perspective, you can read, the Dalai Lama's books all about compassion and kindness. There's there's many, many things written about peace and what that means. And I'd like to just give you a, the sort of shaman's view of this, because that's why you come hear me, I guess, more than anyone else. But and then do a little exercise. I'm going to teach you a little bit of some practical meditations, essentially, that are actually turns out in my CD here, but things that I've been teaching and have come across over many, many years of doing these kind of practices that I think really, really work well and effectively. So it's not just a concept. The shaman's way of working is less about just with the mind and words and understanding. That's the warrior masculine approach, by the way. So the shaman, there's the mind and your life experiences, but there's these other two layers, the soul and the mythic, the unconscious beliefs, the myths that I spoke about earlier. And so we need to get these two layers to match what we want to experience, because each of these influences creates the next. Our thoughts create our experiences, our myths influence our thoughts, and our soul and the old patterns from past lives and ancestors that we may still be carrying influence those myths that we're going into again for maybe the 10th time. So when we do work as shamans, we want to make sure we're accessing all the layers, because it really does have a more quick and graceful way of getting what we want to get done. Any questions about any of that before I move on? And one of the things that I always do when we start these is I like to open sacred space, because part of accessing these layers, these depths, is to do it in a very safe and sacred and environment. And I know this space is already that, this couldn't get much better. But let's just call on. I like to call on my team. I like to call on the non-physical forces of nature and my lineage to come and hold and support all of us while we do this. And yours it's an opportunity for you to call on that which that represents to you as well. So let's do that. We're going to stand up and face each direction, starting with the south, which is this way. I'd like to define, I guess, peace and kindness in a very simple, practical way. I think peace is essentially lack of conflict. Does that sound about right? Last time I was here, we talked about how enlightenment is just lack of confusion. When you're not confused, you're light. You're enlightened, and that's it. Same thing. Peace is lack of conflict, and so there's, we understand as shamans that conflict really starts from within. That to end up having conflict out here means that we are engaging in battle, often with ourselves, and judging ourselves in one way or the other. And when we put down the weapons against ourselves, it makes it possible for us to put down the weapons against others, to have true compassion, which I believe is the definition of kindness, essentially. To be able to put ourselves really in somebody else's shoes, look at the world through their perspective, and whether they're being the perpetrator, the victim, or the rescuer, which to shamans is all a trap. We want to be creators. But no matter what any of those roles, that comes from a place of pain and woundedness, typically. And so to be able to be fully present with somebody, and to be able to actually, for a moment, let go of your own inner conflicts and look at what's going on with them. It's an opportunity to then have the perspective that allows you to be truly kind to them, not just the idea that to be. Now, it doesn't mean not reacting to the world, not living. Living in the moment means all kinds of emotions, from anger and violent emotions and sadness. We don't want peace to mean that we're dead, that's just all gone and we just sit in a kind of blissful state all the time. That's really nice for a while, but it gets boring pretty quickly as well after a while. So you want to be able to enjoy the drama, to experience the contrast, to have the pleasure and the pain, ideally much more pleasure than pain. But when something's going on that causes pain, you know, you want to cry, you want to scream, you want to yell, you want to be in that moment fully engaged with all that is your life and your being. The conflict comes in when you start to question that and wonder if that was bad or not, right? Should I have just been able to not react and be totally kind no matter what they would do? And you see how much conflict that elicits within you. Am I a good person or not? Could I be better? How do I get rid of that part of me that gets angry? When, as shamans understand it, as long as you're physically present here in the theater, you will always have those within you. We call it, there's a whole piece of work around it called shadow work that we do. And of course, Debbie Ford, Dark Side of the Light Chasers, is a great study of that, and practical treatment of that. And it is about recognizing and finding every one of those little parts within you that we somehow have been taught to judge and to try and get rid of and do battle with, that we're not even aware sometimes we're doing battle with it, and that's why it's called shadow. It's way behind us. And to be able to then love that part of us, literally have the compassion and the kindness directed towards ourselves to such a degree that we can stop the inner conflict and embrace all of it. In fact, I want to read you this quote. I think this is kind of funny that I'm using this, but we'll just bear with me. It's a moment, a new moment in the life of Sean. Facebook. It's not all technology is bad. So this is a quote I love, and I saw it this morning for a good reason. It says, my philosophy is, it's none of my business what people say of me and think of me. I am what I am, and I do what I do. I expect nothing and accept everything, and it makes life so much easier. Guess who that was? Anthony Hopkins. And I love Anthony Hopkins. He's pretty cool. Anyway. But that's kind of, that's a little bit of the essence of shadow work, is to be able to recognize. Now, if you are constantly engaged in conflict in your world, if you have difficult relationships and difficult battles with health and a lot of things happening that you don't want to have happening, there's a lot of healing that needs to take place there. No question about it. We have past life wounds and things that sit at this level of our being and that create those experiences for you over and over. So that's an essential part of getting to a place where you can do the shadow work. The shadow work's really the last piece of work on a healing journey that we do, to be able to shed the violent wounds against you so that you can embrace the violence in you is essential. You can't be holding it any longer. Does that make sense? And so that's the bottom line about what peace really means. A lot of these things, and I write about it in my book, is that it's the nature of nature. It's our nature to be compassionate and loving and peaceful when we're not wounded and engaging in inner conflict around all of that. That's just the norm. Look at animals. Look at the rest of nature, of the wild, that doesn't necessarily have these sort of, or the kind of people like the Karo that have been isolated so that they haven't been living this weird upside down warrior masculine type of life. And they don't even have a word for compassion or peace. It's just the norm. It's like, well, what do you mean? What else is there? What's the opposite of that, right? So I don't think it's not about working hard to achieve this concept called I am peace, or I'm a peaceful person. It really is more practical. It's a more practical thing of just stopping the inner conflict, because the lack of conflict is peace. And it's not death, again. It's not no reaction to anything. You see the difference there? You want to still be alive and engaged. And I just worked with a healer. I got this wonderful training, this amazing Qigong master from northern China who lives now in Fullerton. She's very well known in China. There's a lot of these types of healers there, but she can manifest herbs out of her hand for you to take, and so and things explode in midair. There's all kinds of interesting things that happen with her work. So it's pretty cool, you know. That's pretty powerful stuff. And she made a really great point that all the healing in the world, all the stuff that we all do to try and get ourselves healed and become better and all that, doesn't count for much if you're not kind. If you can't practice kindness. And that was like, wow, no wonder, people who've done a lot of healing and everything like that aren't quite there yet. And it's because of this simple idea. And the way she put it was very interesting. I don't buy into every sort of, philosophy or religious concept that easily, but the idea was that we all have these non-physical beings around us, these guides and guardians, and some don't. Some have split and left people alone, but you can get them back. But they, generally speaking, just like with when I opened Sacred Space in the Karo tradition, we call on these forces very deliberately and consciously, and there's a whole kind of pantheon. And much like in her Buddhist tradition, there's 10,000 Buddhas and 100,000 Bodhisattvas, and they all do special things, right? And so what she was saying was that if you're deliberately unkind to somebody, you're being very sort of malicious, I guess. Their non-physical guides will kind of keep track of that and create a debt. It's like the karmic debt. And they will collect, so then next time you get something nice from somebody like a healing, they're there to just strip it and give it to their person. Interesting concept, right? It was like, yeah, wow, we really need to pay attention to that, because you want to make sure that your relationships are good with everybody, everything, physical and non-physical. That's really the bottom line, is are you not creating a conflict with even unseen forces that then later, you'll have to appease or give them offerings. There's ways to deal with that don't involve just stripping everything away. You could make offerings and do prayer and get yourself out of that debt, obviously. But the Karo, my teachers have this concept called Aini. And it's reciprocity, it's right relation. It's very simple. It's like, I do for you today, you do for me tomorrow. You help me build my house today, I help you build your house tomorrow. Everything's always sort of balanced out in that way. So, and that's also for the non-physical worlds. They will make sure that when they receive something like a gift, if you give them a drink or something like that, they'll take some of it and they'll dip it back to the earth, just automatically, to give it back to the Pachamama where it came from, as a way of just having gratitude and right relation. And a lot of their healing work is around this, what they call an Aini Despacho, giving gifts back to the earth to make up for these things. So it's a kind of universal thing, I think, this idea that we want to be kind and have good relations, right? So, so one of the so I want to move now to are there any comments or questions about this, the way I've described peace and kindness? Did I miss something? Are you wondering? Yeah.
Where do you get your information from your guides? Is that your channel?
Get my
your information, like what you're talking about, the feminine things. I've heard that from a lot of different spiritual teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You got a channel.
Yeah, I think that's how it feels to me usually. We can call it channeling. Yeah. Guides are working all the time. Yeah, helping out and giving information. The Karo, have always kind of, taught us this way as well, directly.
Is that the Native American?
These are the Peruvian Indians that have isolated themselves for 500 years, so that they held on to a lot of stuff that was lost otherwise. And they're the ones who have initiated me, and I'm part of their lineage. So they do a lot of that engaging from a non-physical channeling level. They've shown up to people meditating in Ohio and said, go call, me. You call this guy Rasmussen and go get a session. And so they're very active guides from the non-physical world. But they're also physical, you can meet them. So this one that I'm speaking of, Don Manuel Quispe, who's shown up to a couple of people and in their meditations and given them information who didn't know anything about this before. He only he passed away in about mid-2000, 2002 to 2004. So we met him, and then when he went non-physical, he's still actively doing stuff. It's kind of interesting. It makes it very, very tangible. Any other thoughts or questions about any of this? This concept of the lack of conflict, it means automatic peace, but it starts with you. Think of it. Just take a moment, actually, and close your eyes, and I'm going to do a little rattling just to kind of get you in an altered state a little bit. Explore where any conflict going on within you. And we'll talk about that. Anybody come up with anything that you're going back and forth on in your own life, in your own being? Yeah.
I had something come up in a meditation last night at this group. I was working on the breathing and that still point before the exhale and stuff like that. The exhale was fine. It was then gently went right into the inhale. But when I exhaled, to take that inhale again was that, I described it as anxiety tightness. It's the feeling anxiety is I really like. That when I would feel most anxious, it was that grabbing or tightness or fear. And I was shocked to see that it's
there.
It's there.
It's on these levels. Yeah. And
I don't know if that's the type of thing you were talking about.
yeah, that's one possibility. That's something that we can. I'm going to do a little bit of a meditation with you all to teach you how to disengage, to be empathetic, but then to be able to disengage, so that when I mentioned about being fully present and reacting in the moment, as part of the drama, the thing about finding a place back to center and peace is to be able to disengage with that moment, to disengage with that situation. And there's some tools that allow us to practice and get good at that, so that you're not conflicted for another 2 weeks again about what you could have said or should have said or should have done or couldn't have done. That's the idea, is not to hold things longer than that moment, right? Because then you're not peaceful. That's the point. The point is that if you have any sort of those questions going on in your mind, questions between this or this, should I have done this, should I do this, am I doing this or not? That's conflict. That's what I'm talking about. That's lack of peace. So to find peace, you kind of have to take a side on any of those conflicts and run with it. Let it go. Be okay. Just like that quote. I am what I am. I do what I do.
For me, it's being like 10 miles ahead of myself. I always bring myself back. So instead of going, oh, should I have done this, should I have done that, it's more like,
what are you gonna do? Yeah, you're not being present, you're being,
Right,
right.
but I know it now. So
Yeah.
I catch myself, but all the time.
Yeah, so from the shaman's perspective, what that really looks like energetically is, our luminous body is this sort of toroidal thing, and ideally it's very smooth, and we just have the source coming in, and we have the drain going out into the earth so that we create, and then our drama and our heavy energies go out the bottom of our body into the earth and get mulched just like our food, and then we just keep playing around like pearls on a string with each other. And when we're together, we connect. We connect with eyes and ears and all that, but we connect energetically, third chakra to third chakra, with these threads of energy, these conduits of energy, right? Of a conduit of energetic information. And take that information into our nervous system. So that's intuition. That's how we can feel what other people are feeling, and it's a very useful thing mostly. But we also do that forward in time to what's coming next, to the next thing we're doing. We keep one connected to the event that happened 2 weeks ago. And the more of these things that we don't disengage from, the more information is still coming in, and it's still working our brain. And so you go to try to meditate, right, and you can't quiet your mind, and you can't get there, and it's hard. It's simply because on an energetic level, you're still picking up tons of information that's not in the present moment of now, right? I've got told, right? So let's just let's try this exercise and see if some of any of the internal conflicts that you're aware of or not will go away or stop when we do this. So it's one of the meditations on here, but just close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Just let it out. And imagine moving from behind your eyes and move down into your torso, behind your heart. See your heart beating in front of you. And then keep moving down so you're right underneath your rib cage, and you see the ribs like the mouth of a cave, and you're looking out from your solar plexus into the world. And it's like you can imagine seeing this room and everything, and if you imagine moving out from there through a tunnel, and let a tunnel form in front of you from your solar plexus, and move out of this place and around the corner, and there's these trees, there's these wonderful redwood trees nearby. And I want you to imagine that your cord connects to one of these trees. And there you are, find yourself face to trunk with this magnificent tree. And you're able to actually merge with the energy body and the physical body of the tree through this tunnel. So now you are the tree, and you feel the strength and sturdiness of your trunk, and the roots in the ground, and the moisture around the roots, pulling up into the roots and up through your cells and out your branches. And you feel a cool breeze on your leaves in this moonlit night. And the moonlight gently working the processes inside your tree, inside you. And not only do you feel that physical tree, but you remember its life. You remember as it broke through the ground several hundred years ago as a tiny sapling, and the sun passed over every day and wrapped its bands of sunlight around you, giving you energy and warming you and allowing you to grow up with the nearby trees and plants. And everything seemed to be moving so much faster than you. You watched the animals go by, and you watched the humans come, and the buildings going up, and everything changing around you. You know what it feels like to be that tree and its history. And then imagine finding that tunnel of light and working your way back through the tunnel of light back to this room and right back into your own solar plexus. And that tunnel dissolves behind you. And then you make your way back up your torso and back behind your eyes, where you're normally looking out into the world, and then open your eyes. Yeah. Pretty good? Very nice, huh? Yeah, you feel like a tree, right? Now you know what it feels like. So that's, you know, that's the sort of the beginning of the shamanic sort of practice of shape-shifting. That's what they do. They would go and into the body of the jaguar, the eagle, or the plant, and learn from that directly, see through its eyes, feel what it feels, sense what it senses, get the information from the plant as to what medicine, how to prepare it for medicine in a way that would take scientists a billion years to ever figure out, right, through trial and error. So it's a very real practice. And if you practice that kind of engaging, then you can practice disengaging, like the dissolving. And you can also do what I call the kahuna break, which is a little ritual of pushing the energy back down the cord and then cutting it and smoothing it. And that's a quicker way even than trying to imagine it dissolving. Because it's mythic, it's ritual, it's always more powerful. Or with a feather or a sword or your smudge, candle, fire, lots of ways to get those engagements to be cut. But the practice that only really, if you just did it for a couple of weeks, you'd have, of learning how to consciously engage and then consciously disengage, will quiet your mind for the rest of your life. You'll be like an expert meditator, basically. At that point, you'll be able to just be fully present in the moment, no engagements here, there, forward in time, back in time. And you will, we practice with trees and animals and such because without a certain amount of training and ability, and healing the wounds of the caretaker archetype and other things, you don't generally want to do that with a person so much. Although we do that naturally, right? But if you're really wanting to be empathetic, if you're really wanting to feel and know what this person has gone through and where they're coming from, that's how you do it. You can literally follow that connection and be there. And then when you come back, you really want to not keep any of it, right? And it's how we work as shamans. It's a big part of how we track as shamans. We're able to see everything from your past to future. So that was that meditation. Now, in terms of, and that's for peace. Now, for the kindness and the compassion and moving beyond your own wounds and your own conflicts, so that you can actually have the time and space to feel somebody else's and have true kindness, true compassion. There's another exercise, there's another meditation that we can do. And so close your eyes. Deep breath again, let it out. And once again, moving from behind your eyes. I'm going to rattle a little bit for this one. So moving from behind your eyes, move down into your torso again. And see your heart beating in front of you. And imagine entering your heart, seeing the blood rushing by and seeing the valves working. Beautiful heart. keeping your body alive. And in the center of your heart there is a light, a beautiful sphere, a gold and white, blue, shimmering light. And I want you to enter that sphere of light, leaving behind your physical body, leaving behind your own story and history. And this is the center of your soul. This is your essential self. And with each breath now, that sphere expands. And it expands around your heart itself. And you see your heart beating within that sphere of light, like you're on the edge of the sphere looking inward. And it expands around your body. Looking down at yourself, sitting in your chair, within your sphere of light. And your sphere is outside of space and time. It's unaffected by anything. And now your sphere of light grows to encompass the whole room. Everything in this room is in your sphere of light. And then it expands out to encompass the entire city. Looking down with this bird's eye view of the entire city within your sphere of light. The cars, the people, the ocean, the animals, city lights, all contained within your sphere of light. And then it expands out once again to cover the entire west coast of this continent. Looking down as if from space, you see it, this whole part of the continent enveloped in your sphere of light. And then it expands to encompass the entire continent. From coast to coast, north to south. Deep under the ground. And now that sphere of light covers the entire planet. You see the whole world within your sphere of light. You can go as far as you wish, encompassing the entire solar system. And then the whole galaxy. And the sphere of light expands to the edge of the entire universe. You even get a glimpse of the void beyond. Now bring it back around the galaxy. Back around the solar system. Back around the earth itself, all within your sphere of light. And right back around this continent. And and the West Coast, and back down around this city. And like an eagle, you're flying along that surface of the sphere, looking down. Back around this room. And right back around your body. Back around your heart. Seeing your heart beating within your sphere of light. Right back down into the center of your heart. Back inside your heart, seeing the blood rushing by and the valves working. And behind your heart, seeing it beating in front of you. And make your way back up your torso, back behind your eyes. Rub your hands together. Feel your face, your body. Fully present once again in this time and space. So, you do that a few times, practice that whenever you feel like it, couple weeks, and you'll find it very easy to get to that eagle's perspective. In the shaman's world, the eagle is the non-judgment. It's looking down and recognizing, this is vast. It's how do I really know what's going on here? How can I possibly judge this is good, this is bad? And so that peace and that compassion springs from that broad perspective. You're not still thinking, oh, that person's horrible, I can't believe they did that. There's the conflict. But I should be nicer, I should be, They did what they did, and it was in that moment, and it's over, and who knows what history they had and wounds they had from childhood and their past lives, and why they acted the way they did. So kindness comes from that. Compassion comes from that broad perspective, eagle's view. Okay, any questions about that? Any thoughts? So those two meditations can get you more peace, more kindness, in a very practical way. Get you back to that normal state that you would be if you weren't in conflict, right? And you weren't judging. So, thank you for coming. Thank you. Good. And I think the tipping point comes when this idea that if we could get there, right here you made the effort to come here, and it's a big deal, and you just did all of this, and if you can practice this a little bit, and you can find that you can eliminate the conflict within, then we can look at the possibility of it being eliminated out there. But a few people together doing this is more powerful than a million people just sort of being, reacting to what is. So it's worth it. It's worth it to get there.
I think it's such a practice too, because we're programmed.
Yeah.
We're just on this pace, no matter where we are in our life, and that culture isn't truly supporting it. And so I feel as if to recognize it and then to really take on as a practice, because it's very easy to just fall out of it and detach ourselves. But having peace and patience even with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I think those exercises are a really kind of tangible practice for that. You know, because the thought of I need to be more peaceful, or I need to be more kind is kind of esoteric, right? And you can keep reading these, but I think if you really try to practice these things, you'll find that after a while, just like practicing a musical instrument, you know, you get to just be, you just jam after a while. You know, they don't practice anymore. It just becomes like you're the normal. So it's really not the daunting idea that you need to take up a practice for the next 20 years before you get there. I think you'll get there in weeks, and you'll stay there. And if you need, if it's the world starts to you know, because it's still an upside down kind of warrior masculine world, if it starts to influence you back, then practice a little bit again, kind of get it spinning again, and you know. But I don't want to leave you with this idea that it requires this tremendous amount of discipline on top of what you're already doing to get by in the world. You know, it's already hard enough to do. So the practice should be simple, like what we just did, and hopefully enjoyable. You know, there's like 6 or 7 meditations on here, because I learned from teaching people that they may enjoy one of them and actually practice that. They won't practice the ones they do that weren't, you know how it is. It's like, unless you're disciplined, it's just unbelievable. It's like it's hard to stick with the thing. It's like you wouldn't, you know, if you really love playing the guitar and someone forces you to practice the piano, forget about it. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think just to be peaceful isn't something we're really good at.
No, it's been so long.
Yeah,
We've been
it's
in the
been so
warrior.
long.
Well, and I think, again, that leads to the idea that if you recognize that the lack of peace is because there's some inner conflict. So in a normal state, we would just be kind of in the moment, and you'd be relaxed and somewhat peaceful, even if you had stuff you had to do, and even if this person was yelling at you, and you got a little worked up, you'd come right back to sort of like, okay, that's over, I'm good, I feel good now, I'm peaceful again, you know. But when you're just sitting there and there's not a lot going on, but you don't feel that peace, that's when you want to look and go, where's my conflict? What's going on in my head that I'm doing this versus this? Because I guarantee you will find something that you're thinking about that is conflicting. That is, you're not okay with it. You're not like that quote, hey, I am what I am. I'm over it, I don't care what you think. That's peace. Okay? Believe it or not. That, you know, so you know what I mean? So you will find that conflict. And then you can decide to let it, to end that war inside. Do the peace treaty. Okay. You'll get this, you'll get that. We're just going to move forward. Compromise with yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because if you can do it there, then you can start talking about maybe they'll do it over there in the Middle East. Maybe they'll sit down together and agree they can, you know, have this and that and be not in conflict, right? But you got, you know, you can't expect them to do it if you can't do it to the easiest person in the room, which is you, right? To make peace with.
I used to say I had a war going on inside all the time, and I don't have that anymore.
Oh, yeah. Good, right? What did you do to stop it?
Okay, a lot of things.
A lot of little different things, right? To finally get to
letting
the
go of things.
yeah, healing.
AA.
Yeah, there you go. All those processes, right, will lead to that putting down the weapons once and for all.
Yeah. Accepting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is the process. That's the thing. You do that, you find peace. All right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. John has a couple CDs, a DVD, and a book, and some of these meditations are on them, so